I'm Pete Gavey, class 89. I played scrum half. John and I were co-captains our senior year. And
John O'Brien, class 89, played wing forward. Had brothers there, and that's one thing that we very in common. We both had brothers that played previous to us. I had two brothers, class of 84, Jim O'Brien, and Dave O'Brien was class of 88. So it was just assumed that I would be playing rugby.
Yeah. You know, my first impression, or our first experience of Fairfield rugby was probably as a junior in high school, because my older brother was at Fairfield playing, and I remember coming up to see him. And you go to a rugby game back then, and the hill was just mobbed with fans, and it was almost impossible not to get caught up in this unbelievable college experience. So clearly that was my first impression of Fairfield rugby. And then, and I had played in high school for a few years, so I knew pretty much when I was a freshman and got here, that was the first activity that I was going to participate in. And as John said, I think as having an older brother play for the team, it's pretty much assumed that you would play as well. And and that tradition that I experienced as a junior in high school continued really throughout our 4 years. So why did I continue to play was largely because I loved it. And it really was kind of like a fraternity at the university where you had so many kids participating in the program. We had, what, probably 3 teams?
Yeah, we had A, B, and C's.
Plus kids that would kind of come and go. And then you had the fan support on a Saturday afternoon. Boy, when it was a sunny day and you had so many kids on the hill there, you just fell in love with the sport. So you kind of wanted to keep getting out there and playing.
You know, I had a very similar experience. I came out senior year in college or high school to visit, and my brother was playing. He was a freshman. My older brother had just graduated, but they had a big rugby party, the game, and then we had a rugby party at the Knights of Columbus, which was a lot of fun, and I'll leave it at that. And
good.
Should I have been drinking at 17? Probably not, but it was, and it was a fraternity. You know, you came in as a freshman, and you were instantly part of the club. You were part of, throughout campus, the seniors, the juniors, the sophomores treated you as equals. And there was nothing like it anywhere else on campus.
You know, as a new player, I'd say, I guess for anybody, there's some level of anxiousness coming out, one as a freshman, but two, coming out and participating in a new sport. But one of the things that I think is great about...
But you had the benefit of playing in high school.
I had the benefit of playing in high school, but you know, still as a freshman, you're anxious about things. And the thing that's so great about rugby is it's so inviting to everybody, in the sense that the upperclassmen do not necessarily look at you, I would say, as a frosh that they're going to kind of come out and abuse. They were actually incredibly inviting, so that they got you involved in the sport right away and encouraged freshmen to come out and participate as much as possible. And I think that the tradition that was created by everyone here in the room and the two before us here really encouraged kids to come out and play. So I would say there is while in any new experience there's a level of anxiousness, it immediately faded once you got on the field and started participating in team activities and the encouragement by the upperclassmen.
Yeah.
John?
When I came out, having never played, I played football in high school, but it's a different sport. And what I found most exciting was it was a true team sport. Not like there's no quarterback on the team when you're playing rugby. There's, you know, everybody's involved for 90 minutes. You're running your ass off, and it's a true team sport. Mm-hmm. You had leaders on the field always. You had seniors and juniors that knew the game and taught you the game, and you never were intimidated. It was
and
exciting.
I think that's an important part, because one of the things that you have that you don't really have in any other sport is that you really don't have a coach out there other than the players. So as a freshman coming out, you don't have this dominant individual out there either barking orders at you or screaming at you. It's your colleagues out there teaching you how to play the sport and getting you involved. And I think that lessens that anxiety level a little bit, just because it is true participation by everybody and true kind of leadership by everybody.
Right.
Good. Now, I was on the field. How about off the field?
You know, again, it gets back to kind of the fraternity aspect. I mean, boy, you because the size of the program, 3 teams, 15 players a team, you had such an enormous participation, plus the enormous fan base. I don't want to say that we were kind of the most liked out there, but you know, boy, it was, everyone knew when the rugby team was around and having a party, and everyone wanted to kind of participate in the rugby parties. Maybe not the females at the times, but definitely the guys wanted to get out there and have a great time. So off field, that camaraderie was as strong, I think, as it was on field.
Absolutely. The beautiful thing about being a captain, you taught. You know, when you can exude your skills, whether mine were good or bad, you're just passing on tradition, and you're teaching the guys the role that they each have to play to be part of a team. And it was not something that's innate. It's something learned from tradition, passing it down, watching the guys before you. We had some great players before us that taught us the right way to play, taught us to be a team player, and that's what was so exciting, I thought.
And so the captains, we led, but or taught, but there are others that weren't necessarily had the title of captain, but they participated in leading the team and providing insight in terms of how to play the game. So that was a great experience. The other part of your question was the selection process, which
the selection.
Yeah, that was an interesting kind of process that occurred every Thursday night. I'm not quite sure if it's still done now, but
is the process done the same? I don't know. I'm sure it probably is.
But it was. I'd like to say I was very organized and disciplined, but the reality is, you know, we got into a room and debated and threw names out and tried to figure out who the most appropriate player was.
And nobody had a set position to be an A player. You know, there were some guys that were on the field. And the beautiful thing, I was a wing forward. I knew my position really well. Was I a good prop teacher? No. So there were props that taught that skill. Hookers. I didn't know anything about hooking or the 8-man. You know, it was not my role. But so you always had positions, but the selection part, the beautiful thing is we would come in and we'd bring a couple of senior guys in and we'd figure it out. And there were times when there were times when I didn't play A side, but yet I was still a captain.
And part of the process, so the criteria to be selected on whatever team it wasn't purely ability. It was the 3 A's. It was attendance, attitude, and ability. So it really kind of emphasized that whole participation by everyone in the club. And it's not just who the best player is that's going to be selected for that A team. It's the individual that's going to participate the most in practices, has just a great attitude, loves the sports, loves the tradition, and has the ability to play that position.
Played that well. I played well that week also.
I don't remember that much in terms of the freshman initiation process. I mean, there's always some activities that were generally minor, I'll say. Bobby Cap's in the background laughing. But it was more trying to encourage everyone to be welcomed into the rugby fraternity, as opposed to trying to kind of degrade anybody. It was more.
Good hedge on that.
And the freshmen would always be brought,
Dance around that like a good politician.
but the freshmen would be brought to the selections, and
We'll take another
they would
time
have
later.
duties.
My perspective is, and it gets back to what I've been saying, is it was such a large organization with such great participation from all classes that it really was viewed as kind of, I'd like to think at least, that the club activity to be involved in.
Yes.
And,
Spring and summer, Saturday entertainment.
and yeah, I mean, thinking back about the Hill and how many kids were hanging out on the Hill watching rugby games for hours. I mean, you know, games started at noon and last game ended, I don't know, 3, 4 o'clock. And then from there, it went down to the beach. And so in terms of how it fit into the university, it was really just a encompassing, I'd say, organization that included so many people, whether you played or didn't. Like I'm pulling together a list for folks my year for the 50th reunion, and I now have a list of social members that want to come to the event, that never played, but just were a part of the rugby club.
It was a part of the scene. It wasn't a part of the administration. The administration saw us as an eyesore, but we were a part of the scene of the university. And
Okay.
like, we're not going to talk about some of the scenes why we were an eyesore, but getting off buses, some people were inappropriate.
I played a little bit after school and loved it, though I must say probably my more memorable post-college experiences were the alumni games, and I played in those for probably 5 or 6 years after school. But I think the other important aspect is that how it helped me after school, not in terms of playing rugby, but just in general life and getting a job. And there wasn't necessarily a direct connection in helping me find a job because I played rugby, but clearly rugby was a growing sport and a very tight-knit group of individuals that played rugby. So I'm down in the finance business, and there are a number of folks that played rugby that are in finance, and being able to kind of talk shop, not finance shop, but rugby shop, made a difference, and there's a connection that's built. And I think we see that even now, how fast rugby is growing these days, that a lot more people are just love the game, and it helps develop that connection.
Yeah, the networking ability. We get the emails every once in a while for kids looking for a job. And if I could help the kid, and I know that anybody in the rugby community for the last 50 years would feel the same. If they could help that person because they fit the bill or there's a need, you'd help them. And for that reason, it's helpful.
Right.
Trying to always get freshmen, you're selling the fraternity, the whole club, the tradition, and you couldn't be on campus without seeing the tradition every Saturday in the fall and every Saturday in the spring. With regards to the other questions, we didn't.
You know, we did not tour our years. We did a couple tournaments. We were up in Boston for the Beanpot tournament,
Which was fun.
There's always an experience traveling with a bunch of guys in a bus and staying overnight someplace. And you know, I would say to the first part of your question, that's part of the recruitment process. When kids hear about an overnight to Boston and playing in a big tournament against all these teams, and back to the Hill and
That's
all
the experience they want.
the kids on the Hill watching rugby, that's recruitment of the sport itself. I mean, people just came out to play rugby because it looked like a great sport, and quite frankly, all the coolest people were playing rugby, right? So, tradition is critical, I think, in future success of so many different things, whether it's rugby or any other sport or activity.
Family,
or
everything.
Family. And understanding how Fairfield Rugby has grown over the years, and what folks like Paul Davis have done for the organization is extremely important to continue this tradition. Now, times change, and because of changing times, things may have to be adjusted, and quite frankly, from what I understand, the current teams are extremely competitive and very strong. We now have a women's program, which is fantastic. And so the tradition is going to continue to evolve over the years, but understanding where the club came from and kind of the camaraderie, just pulling all this stuff together is critical to continued success. And quite frankly, from the university's perspective, I think there's so many folks that have gone through the rugby program that you want to keep a connection to all the alumni.
Pid was very good about that. Pid was always constantly reminding us of the roots, where this came from, and that, I think, I hope, I'm assuming it is, being transcended down to future generations. You know, tradition is the core, and as long as the kids from the upper class are taking in the kids from the underclassmen, that will continue.
Yeah, Paul was a legend.
It was.
At Fairfield Rugby. Why do you think he was so loved, John?
Because he cared.
Okay.
He truly cared. He was someone who loved the tradition of the game, loved the tradition that it created in the school. I think he had a lot of fun with it too.
I agree. What did he offer? What was the biggest thing he offered as a moderator?
Support, without a doubt. He, as John mentioned, he's the one that focused on tradition and kind of provided some level of guidance, but really it was the support and encouragement that he always had. And to have your moderator, you know, show up to every game, every drink up, and kind of being there supporting the team was critical.
Well, we always beat Army, so. No, I wish that was the case. They were like Hitler Youth. Well, he had 15 guys on the field that were all about 6'2" and 190 pounds and could run like gazelles. It was hard to compete against them. But I have memories that I have, you know, playing in the Bean Pod my freshman year, and I'm a B player, and walking onto the field because one of the 8th side player, junior, gets hurt, and I get thrown into the mix. I tackle a guy, and then I tackle another guy. I was telling Pete about this and reminding him of the story, and then the whole team stopped. Everybody's looking at me, and I've got blood running down my ear because I ripped my ear off. And off to the hospital I went and met everybody at the party, and that's one of the distinct memories in my mind, you know, when I think about rugby and the traveling and the tradition, and one of the hits that I had.
Pete, any rivalry that sticks out in your mind with any team that you couldn't wait to play or you hated to play?
Well, clearly, Army, and whether it was A or B, it was Army. Anytime you played those guys, you're up for. I'd like to say we gave them a battle, but whenever we played Army A, it was we usually got a whipping. But they're the team that you love to kind of get up against, and we went a couple times up to West Point, and those were fantastic facilities, and they actually, Army really knew how to keep that rugby tradition going too, I'd say. They could play on the field and off the field as well as anybody, I think.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Describe something that you always take with you as the essence of what the rugby experience meant to you, right down to your core.
Wow.
I honestly, what I felt was the fraternal feeling of being welcome. You were part of a club. You were part from the moment you joined the team, that you could walk into any party, and if you knew a player there from the team, you were welcome. And that transcended everything. You know, you never felt there was a division between upperclassmen and lowerclassmen. And
What I'd
you're
add
part
to
of the
that,
school.
What I'd add to that is you would play your hearts out, your butts off during the game day, and you're playing against the enemy. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're going out there to win and play against the enemy. But it's this such an interesting dynamic that after that game, both teams would get together and host a beer and become the best of friends. So I'm not sure if there's another sport or activity out there where you're such combative folks on the field, yet afterwards all that's gone,
Gloves are off
and you're having a great time and talking about that hit that you just had or that try or whatever it was. It's just a fantastic experience.
True.
Okay, now, is there any message you'd like to share with the guys from the start of the club in '63 and '64?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for starting something that will continue for a long, long time. And
It's a really special organization.
without it
and,
here, the school would be missing a big tradition.
And how about to the new guys?
Keep it up.
Current class.
Watch this video, come to the event, experience the tradition, and keep it alive.
Yeah.